This video is brought to you by aztecasoccer.com, your one-stop shop for all of the latest and greatest soccer gear. Use coupon code SR4U at checkout to get 10% off any order of $99 or more. Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the brand new Adidas A16.2 PrimeMesh in the black, solar green, and shock pink colorway. Now inside the box, all you get are the shoes themselves. They do not come with any extras. So let me get these guys out of the box really quickly, and we'll take a closer look at the first takedown model of the A16.1 Prime Knit, which is the mid-cut shoe from Adidas with laces, of course. To be completely clear, it's this shoe right here. So you guys have probably seen the video on my channel. If you haven't, I'll leave an annotation on screen. But this is the first takedown model. It has a retail price of $130 US, so it's significantly cheaper than the one above it that retails for $250. It's basically double the price for the top end model. So what are you getting with the 16.2 PrimeMesh? What is PrimeMesh? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. I'm going to be going over tech specs. We're going to take a look at the weight of the shoe. We're going to go over the fit and feel, because what I can tell you right off the bat is that these are quite a bit different when compared to the top end model. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, watch the entire video. If you guys are interested in a pair of these for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $130 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. To start things off, let's talk tech specs. Now, if you're interested in the A16.2 PrimeMesh, you're probably wondering what the differences are in comparison to the 16.1 Prime Knit. If you haven't watched my video on this shoe, again, I'll leave an annotation on screen. Go ahead and watch it. I go over all the details, and it's going to help you kind of understand what the differences actually are between these two shoes, because despite technically having similar elements and looking quite similar as well, they're actually very, very different shoes in terms of their overall construction, which if you watch this video, you'll be able to understand a little bit better as I explain the 16.2. So go ahead and watch my review on this one if you haven't already. Now, with the 16.2 PrimeMesh, you're probably wondering, what is PrimeMesh? Obviously, they didn't give it Prime Knit, which is a knitted material for the upper, where you're going to find a variation in the knitting pattern, more dense in certain areas, more open in certain areas. It just creates for a very unique kind of sock-like feel. With this upper, it's now called PrimeMesh. It's a new synthetic material from Adidas that essentially is a mesh-based synthetic. You're seeing this a lot from all the companies, not just Adidas. I think textiles and just kind of more padded, softer materials for uppers are kind of the trend at the moment, which is good to see, because at the lower price points, this not necessarily being a cheap shoe at $130 retail, but in comparison to a lot of synthetic shoes at this price point, I would say that the synthetic upper, the PrimeMesh upper, is above average in terms of softness and general quality. So what you have with this shoe, I have the laces removed on this pair, is kind of a similar construction process to what you're going to find from the Prime Knit model. The central layer, or the main kind of core of the upper, is a knitted material. You guys can kind of see it here by the side profile. That's what's giving the shoe this interesting pattern and texturing on the outside. But again, unlike Prime Knit, you're going to find that the pattern is pretty much consistent. There's no variation there. So on top of that, you have your silicone layer with the non-stop grip dots as well. And then underneath that, you have a lining material, as you guys can see, along with this kind of complex, I guess, heel area that we'll talk about in just a second. So the actual synthetic itself, it's soft, it's flexible. It reminds me a lot actually of the X-Skin synthetic that you're going to find on the X15.1, the synthetic upper variation, but just a little bit thicker and a little bit more padded. So it's soft, it's flexible, it feels really, really nice. It's a thinner type of touch on the ball, but it does have that dampened effect as well. In comparison to the top end Prime Knit, I wouldn't say that it's quite as soft feeling. It's not quite as flexible either. And it doesn't have the same level of, I guess, kind of tactile feedback. You just feel the ball a little bit better in the Prime Knit model versus the PrimeMesh variation that's just a little bit thicker and a little bit more dense. But again, at the $130 price point, a lot of synthetic shoes just aren't the greatest. But like I said, the quality on this shoe seems to be pretty decent, so no major complaints there at all. non-stop grip dots on the surface. Basically Adidas' answer to Nike's ACC all conditions control technology. It's supposed to allow for better grip on the ball in wet weather playing conditions, but just like ACC, it's one of those features that is not going to be a make or break feature in terms of your overall experience with the shoe. Now, the Adidas stripes on the top end PrimeKnit model, you're going to find that they're actually a TPU plastic on top of the upper, acting as kind of reinforcement zones tying into the base of the sole and the lacing system. This is just printed on to show the Adidas branding and isn't actually going to provide any extra reinforcement. So in terms of just having a locked in sensation, this is not going to be quite as responsive as what you're going to find from that higher end model. Not sure why they wouldn't include that feature. I don't think it would have costed that much more, but they didn't for whatever reason. Laces run through the middle. As you guys can see, it doesn't have all the same cutouts running through the middle like you're going to find on the top end model. The center part does have the silicone covering to match the rest of the upper, and then there is actually a memory foam insert that's kind of glued onto the back of this neoprene area, just providing some nice kind of protection and comfort against any kind of lace bite. So when you pull the laces, it's not uncomfortable or anything like that. As far as the cut is concerned, because that obviously is kind of why people are excited. Nike got people really excited with the Fatal 2 DF, offering their mid-cut design at a lower price point. And Adidas has kind of one-up them here in that the Fatal 2 DF retails for about $170, $160, where these guys retail for $130. So they're technically less. Is this really a mid-cut shoe like what you're going to find from Nike? Not necessarily. These are cut lower, and it's basically just an extension piece. But I guess a lot of people who have been kind of curious with playing around with different cuts on soccer cleats finally have that option at a slightly lower price point. So essentially the construction of the shoe is pretty much the same as what you're going to find on the top end 16.1 PrimeKnit, but obviously the collar isn't made from PrimeKnit and neither is the upper. So just like the PrimeKnit model, essentially this extension piece ties into the actual tongue area of the shoe. So it's attached at the end, it's open down the sides, and then it wraps down right here. So kind of cuts off and then ends up wrapping around the heel area. So the part of the collar that goes down into the shoe is basically from here back, and eventually it just basically turns into the heel liner. So this part, this extension piece, is basically just a stretchy neoprene material. It's nothing special, honestly. It's nothing that you feel when wearing on your foot. It's basically what we have right now from the X15.1, but just a little bit longer. So it's not something that, again, really takes any getting used to. It doesn't really feel that much different from a standard cut. It's just a little extension piece of material that really has no performance benefit whatsoever. It's just something that people really seem to be into right now. They like how it looks. Obviously, it is a little bit different than a standard low-cut shoe, but again, there's no performance benefit to any of the mid-cut models, whether it's an Adidas shoe or a Nike shoe. It's just a different look and a very, very, very slightly different feel. Now, with this particular shoe, you can see that it does have the same general shape on the outside. You can see the silhouette, and then the extension pieces come from the side. So you still have an internal plastic heel counter. The back of the shoe doesn't really come up any higher than an average soccer cleat would. And on the inside, the majority of the liner just continues on with this neoprene material that I'm slightly worried about just because it can be a little bit slick. But on the very inside of the upper at the base here, in the heel area, there is a kind of smooth synthetic suede. So heel slippage shouldn't be an issue given that you do have that difference of material at the very bottom, which is a nice little change, again, in comparison to the current X15.1 synthetic upper variation that just has a straight up neoprene heel liner that I think is a little bit too slick for the shoe. So inside the shoe, there is of course an insole. The insole is pretty much what you get on the top end model. It's a mesh liner on top, perforations through the forefoot and midfoot area, and just a single layer of this black foam. Nothing too fancy, but it does get the job done. And then moving on to the sole plate and stud pattern, this is one of the major differences coming from the top end model. This does not have a sprint frame construction, so no external heel counter, which isn't a big deal, but it also doesn't have the lightweight sprint frame construction. This is a standard kind of TPU plastic, kind of more of a high rubber content that does add a lot of extra weight to the shoe. So these are definitely not as light as what you're gonna find with the top end model, which you guys will see in just a second in this video. And it doesn't necessarily have the same kind of flex points either. It's a little bit stiff in the forefoot for my liking. It reminds me a lot, unfortunately, of kind of older F30 models. It's pretty much the exact same type construction, very, very stiff through the midfoot, pretty stiff right here, and then there is some decent flexibility between these two studs. So that may take some getting used to, that may impact heel slippage in a certain way. I'll talk about that a little bit later during the on-feet portion of the video, but overall, nothing like what you're going to find from that top-end model with its sprint frame construction. Definitely does change the feel of the shoe in a major way. And as far as the stud pattern is concerned, it maintains the same ground control 2.0 stud pattern, which is technically an FG-AG stud pattern. The studs on this model are pretty much the exact same length, all conical in shape. It's a stud pattern that's pretty straightforward from Adidas. We've seen it for many years now. They're basically just bringing it back, but instead of triangular studs, they're now conical in shape. It's definitely more of a firm ground stud pattern in terms of how it feels and performs, but definitely is usable on artificial grass as well. Haven't really had any issues using it on AG. It doesn't really feel like an AG stud pattern, but there's no clinginess. It doesn't necessarily feel unstable. And like I said, it does get the job done on both of those surfaces. So if you regularly play on both firm natural grass and artificial grass, this particular shoe with this particular stud pattern definitely will get the job done on both of those surfaces, which is nice because it can save you from buying two individual pairs. In terms of weight, I thought we'd compare the top end 16.1 model to the takedown 16.2 to see what the difference actually is by weighing them in real time using this scale. So keep in mind, these are both in brand new condition and both the exact same size 9 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the top end 16.1 Prime Knit, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.95 ounces, the equivalent of 225 grams. So right at that 8-ounce mark, which is relatively lightweight given the way that the shoe fits and feels on your foot. So change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and we'll throw on the A16.2 PrimeMesh, and you can see that they weigh in at significantly more, 9.9 ounces, the equivalent of 281 grams. So you're talking about a weight difference of about 2 full ounces, which is definitely noticeable both in hand as well as on feet. You go from what feels like a pretty lightweight shoe from the top end 16.1 to a shoe that isn't necessarily heavy, but certainly at 10 ounces or so isn't really all that light either. So big weight difference between the two. The main reasoning is, one, it does have a completely different construction for the upper, and two, it doesn't have a sprint frame sole plate, which adds quite a significant amount of weight. So if you're looking for a lightweight feel, you're not necessarily going to get that from the A16.2 PrimeMesh. Aesthetically, I can't say that I'm crazy about the way these things look. The A16.2 PrimeMesh doesn't have the same kind of premium vibe, in my opinion, that you get from that top end model. The Prime Knit just looks better, and also I think the heel counter being eliminated on the 16.2 model just makes the shoe look a little bit cheaper as well. It doesn't have quite the same shape either. The toe box is a little bit clunkier and a little bit bigger in general. Plus, the neoprene collar, as opposed to a knitted Prime Knit material, again, just looks a lot cheaper in my opinion. It almost looks like it was an afterthought to add this in, as opposed to something that's actually supposed to be there. And then, of course, again, the sole plate doesn't look quite the same either, but that's not a major deal. I just don't think that this is the most attractive looking shoe in the 16.2 variation. In a different colorway, maybe it would look a little bit better, but as these sit right now, I can't say that I'm too crazy about how they look. Let me know your opinions on it down below in the comment section. Do you like how this shoe looks? Why or why not? And with that being said, let's move on to the on-feet portion of the video so we can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit and of course what the sizing is like. All right, so here is a look at the A16.2 PrimeMesh on feet. On my left foot, I have the stock green laces that come with the shoes. And on my right foot, I have a pair of black reflective SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. You find a direct link to that website down below in the description of this video. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, they're actually very, very comfortable from right out of the box. In comparison to the 16.1 Prime Knit, the shape is a little bit different. I would argue that this is not quite as tight fitting in the forefoot and toe box area. It is a little bit higher volume, which you can pretty clearly see just based on the shape of the shoe even prior to putting them on. But for the most part, they're very comfortable. The PrimeMesh upper is soft, it's flexible against your foot, it's not quite as thin as the higher end model, but really no issues as far as discomfort is concerned. The midfoot area definitely does feel like there is some kind of reinforcement through the liner itself because you don't necessarily get it from the Adidas stripes, but there definitely is more of a tight sensation through the midfoot, whereas the forefoot and toe box area is kind of a little bit more loose in terms of its overall fit, more flexible, I should say. So in that regard, it is kind of similar to the higher end model. As far as the fit in the heel area is concerned, it has the neoprene cut or extension pieces that really are just extension pieces. Other than them, if you eliminated them completely, the shoe really wouldn't feel any different. You don't feel the little extension piece against your ankle kind of when they are being covered. When your ankle's already being covered by a sock, it does fit fairly snug, so there's really no extra space hanging off, which I guess is a good thing. But aside from just the difference in visuals that it provides, it doesn't really change the feel of the shoe in any way at all. So yes, technically it's a mid-cut shoe if you want to call it that. It's very, very low though. It's kind of like almost, I guess the lower third of your ankle is where it cuts off, but not really something you're going to notice when you're wearing the shoe whatsoever, even from the first time that you put them on. As far as fit is concerned, it does have a tighter fit through the midfoot, but for the most part, they're going to be suitable for most foot types. As far as stretching is concerned, not really going to get much stretch out of these. So if you have really, really wide feet, probably not the best option, but again, they will be suitable for most people. And as far as sizing goes, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US here, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. All right, guys, that is it for my review of the Adidas Ace 16.2 PrimeMesh. It's a decent shoe for the money. Would it be my pick at the $130 price point? Not necessarily, but if you had your eye on this pair, they definitely are a decent pair of shoes. So expect to see more follow-up content on this shoe in the very near future on my channel. In the meantime, if you guys would like more info, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you'll find high quality images of this exact pair that I took myself, as well as buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $130 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. If you have any questions at all regarding the Ace 16.2 PrimeMesh, leave those questions down below in the comment section. I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.